Hello and welcome to the next Thematic List Build. Last time I covered the White Scars, but seeing as how the Space Wolf supplement is not yet released, I'll be skipping ahead to the Sentinels of Terra. So let's dive into a Thematic List Build for the Imperial Fists. For those new, the goal of the Thematic List Build series is to create a 2K Strike Force size list based around a theme central to the focused faction. And with that now stated, let's take a look at the subfaction rules. The 9th edition iteration of the Imperial Fists Chapter tactic remains functionally the same as it was previously, though the wording has been clarified to reflect that now the target being fired upon can't leverage the benefits of light cover. The Imperial Fist combat doctrine bonus is the Legacy of Dorn. Taking place in the Devastator Doctrine, it grants heavy weapons +1 damage when fired at vehicles. Worthy of note is that it has been updated to only function with heavy weapons strength 7 or higher, so it is no longer abusable for the Fist's grav cannons or heavy bolters. On the spectrum of efficiency versus flexibility, the Imperial Fist toolset probably ranks as the chapter which leans the hardest towards efficiency, which in the theoretical isn't necessarily bad. It certainly speaks to their quirks, narratively speaking. But in the practical, it does mean the Imperial Fists are a less dynamic force than the other chapters, and having valuable stratagem and relic real estate locked out to the Crimson Fists doesn't help the issue. Side note here, I find it useful to categorize factions in this manner, and now I'm starting to think that going through and ranking the chapters on this spectrum might make for a fun video. So let me know if that sounds like something you would like to see. My previous Imperial Fists list build video was created quite a while ago, just before the release of Vigilus Defiant if I recall correctly. It featured 3 Predators, 3 Vindicators, and lots of Aggressors, so I decided to take a different approach this time around. In part because I felt that recreating the same list might be less desirable for you viewers, but also due to the Imperial Fists being a chapter which offers efficiency over flexibility to such a severe degree, and so I have decided to take options which aim to shore up that lack. When it comes to the objective themes of the list, they are flexing the Imperial Fists' disciplined marksmanship with bolter weapons, units which are capable of laying waste to vehicles, and adding flexibility to create a more dynamic force. After all, if something can be made more flexible, it will be less likely to break. And now let's go over to the list breakdown. The list is organized into a battalion, and I figured it's better to start off with the units which add flexibility, starting with a unit of infiltrators taken at the maximum size. The obvious benefit provided by them is the ability to forward deploy. I would recommend deploying them within a terrain feature in the midfield, ideally in a position to control an objective. Now might actually be a good time to cover the pretty wild amount of defensive stratagems the Imperial Fist infantry have at their disposal. The new codex provides Transhuman Physiology, which denies wound rolls of 2 and 3 from being successful, requires the unit to be Primaris. Unyielding in the face of the foe allows you to add 1 to armor saving throws if the attack is damage 1, requires the unit is Mark 10 Gravis. Smokescreen, which provides a -1 to hit against ranged attacks, requires the unit is Smokescreen. And the Imperial Fist supplement provides Bolster Defenses, which allows you to add an additional 1 to your armor saving throws, lasts until that unit moves, and requires the unit to already be receiving the benefits of cover and can only be used once per game. Pain is a lesson, grants the unit a 6-up feel no pain to ignore damage. And the Shield Unwavering lets a unit add 1 to their attack's characteristic and 1 to their armor saving throw, and requires them to be within 3 inches of an objective marker. Also, while not defensive per se, I feel I should point out that their chapter tactic will make any Imperial Fist bolter unit's Overwatch perform better than average. And if a unit is locked up in combat, the Imperial Fists do have a stratagem close range bolter fire to turn their bolt weapons into the pistol type. All said, it's a pretty beefy list of defensive stratagems. And with the infiltrators eligible for 5 of them, they can be a unit which is extremely difficult to dislodge with ranged attacks. So just keep that in mind when it comes to your opponent's threat range during your deployment. Next up are Eliminators, 2 squads taken with bolt sniper rifles. Again, as a forward deploying unit, there is some utility that can be gained, but the primary flexibility boost Eliminators provide is in their ability to ignore the Lookout Sir rule and shoot at characters. In most cases, you'll want to deploy these guys last in your list, to wait and see where the enemy characters are deployed and position yourself appropriately. Unlike Sniper Scouts and Eldar Rangers, Eliminators are what I would qualify as an elite sniping unit, meaning they are skilled and have a weapon profile sufficient to be threatening. There is a caveat to be stated here. The Scout Sniper Rifle has been improved to have an AP characteristic of -1, and as an elite choice they aren't taking up any of the valuable heavy support slots. But there is a very distinct edge the Eliminators have, and that is their Sniper Rifle is a bolt weapon, meaning that on natural hit rolls of 6, each Eliminator scores 2 hits, which is quite the badass interaction of mechanics to flex for the Imperial Fists bolt marksmanship, as it quite awesomely represents a double tap sniper shot, and it means the Imperial Fist Eliminators can perform above average on a unit that already is rather threatening. Shifting over to the HQs is Tor Garadon. I like this guy. Sure, he did have some funny artwork that was memed to hell when he debuted, but his design is pretty great in my opinion, just oozing that Siege Captain vibe of the Imperial Fists. He will be the warlord of this list, and he must take the appropriate warlord trait Siege Master. It's not the greatest force multiplier for other units, but the +1 to wound means his grav gun has a better wound rate versus vehicles, and his Hand of Defiance, which swings at strength 12, will wound even the toughest enemy vehicles on 2s. The trait also does complement his ability, Siege Captain, increasing his damage dealt with any of his weapons by 1 versus vehicles. His other unique ability is the Signum Array, which allows him to give any Imperial Fist unit a +1 to hit. Importantly, it's one of the rare abilities that works on non-core units, which is handy to have. And as a captain, he still does have his Rites of Battle aura for core units. With the goal of reinforcing the midboard or applying pressure against the enemy deployment zone is a max-size unit of Intercessors. The Sergeant has a Power Fist because, well, with the Imperial Fists, I don't see why not, and the unit has been outfitted with standard bolt rifles. Tried and true. They have a standard rate of fire, and in the Tactical Doctrine they will have that also valuable AP-2, which is going to be greatly appreciated against targets which treat AP-1 as 0. And here on this unit we have an ideal candidate for the Bolter Drill stratagem. At their max size they output 20 shots, and with Bolter Drill active, each hit roll of 6 explodes into 3 hits rather than the usual 2. And sure, it isn't as potent of a tactic as when it was used on Centurions back in 8th edition. But interestingly enough, the 9th edition Codex grants Intercessors the ability to shoot again. It's a 4 command point combo, but it provides the Intercessors some means to double their damage output, or to be flexible and fire at 2 targets. And for Imperial Fist Intercessors with Bolter Drill, it lets them double dip in that boosted efficiency. To facilitate the unit of Intercessors getting to where they want to go, they will be riding in a Repulsor. The Repulsor has been taken with the Twin Last Cannon and Last Talon configuration, and with Storm Bolters wherever possible. I think it's worth mentioning that the Hunter Slayer missile is no longer a stratagem, instead it's a once per game missile baked into the Repulsor's points cost. It has the same stat profile as the improved Hunter Killer missile, but it can uniquely fire at targets not visible to the bearer, which adds yet another nice little layer of flexibility. The Repulsor is an excellent candidate for Tor Garadon's Signum Array, since as mentioned it works on non-core units. And with 4 Last Cannons and a Hunter Slayer missile, it can leverage that +1 to hit with their Devastator Doctrine bonus, the Legacy of Dorn. And since the Signum Array has been FAQ'd to be done in the command phase, it will allow you to apply it and send the Repulsor off in a different direction if need be. The second HQ of the list is a Primaris Librarian. He has been given the relic, the Eye of Hypnoth, which effectively grants him the Lieutenant's Tactical Precision aura, and 1 command point has been spent on the hero of the chapter to give him the Warlord trait, the Hand of Dorn, allowing you to gain D3 command points at the start of the game. So we have spent 1 to gain D3, which is pretty nifty. More command points will translate to more tactical options. As far as powers go, he has taken Psychic Fortress and Might of Heroes. These powers have been selected in mind to allow our Librarian to be the Hand of Dorn to Tor Garadon's Fist. They have been designed to work as a pair in this list, and to explain the big picture, I'm gonna jump ahead. If Tor Garadon and the Primaris Librarian are the commanders of the siege, operating as their phalanx are 3 ironclad dreadnoughts. All have taken identical loadouts, but for one, which has assault launchers, because of points. Each ironclad is equipped with 2 Hunter Killer missiles, allowing them to provide some anti-tank support while in the Devastator Doctrine. Each ironclad has a Hurricane Bolter, a rapid-fire 6 bolt weapon, and as core units, this phalanx can leverage the reroll of 1s to hit and wound provided by Tor and the Librarian, which makes for some high rate of fire, exploding bolter shots. Each ironclad has a Meltagun for closer range engagements, and each has been fitted with the Dreadnought Chain Fist, granting 5 attacks hitting on 3s at strength 12, minus 4 AP, dealing 2d3 damage, which is right in line with my philosophy for anti-armor heavy weapons. Variable d6, but clamped at minimum 2. But the Chain Fist has the added benefit of dealing flat 6 damage versus vehicles. Defensively, Ironclads are quite brilliant. They have the smokescreen keyword, and uniquely they have a toughness characteristic of 8. And as Dreadnoughts, they have Duty Eternal, which will reduce their damage suffered by 1. It's quite the resilient phalanx for Tor and the Librarian. And like the Hand of Dorn he is, our Librarian can further bolster this phalanx. With him knowing Psychic Fortress, he can provide a 5-up invulnerable save to all chapter units within 6 inches of him. I find the Imperial Fist Geomancy discipline to be pretty meh. But for an Imperial Fist Librarian to use Psychic Fortress to create a mobile siege wall, that's that good shit. Also, as a bonus, the Librarian can use Might of Heroes to bring one Ironclad up to Toughness 9. And he can bring Tor Garradon's Fist of Vengeance up to Strength 15, which might come in handy if he needs to fight a high toughness monster. And with that, we're nearing the end. Taking up the last troop slot, and whose job it is to hold the backfield, is a unit of heavy intercessors. They have been taken with heavy bolt rifles and a single heavy bolter. They have a fantastic range as backfield objective holders, and if they are also claiming the benefits of cover, it will open up quite a few defensive strats for the heavy intercessors. I have opted for the heavy bolter because of the Hellfire Shell stratagem. The utility to fire a D3 mortal wounds shot is handy to have, and with the stratagem having been improved to deal flat 3 mortal wounds versus monsters is again a nice bit of flexibility to have, since Legacy of Dorn only provides benefits versus vehicles. And I figured I would mention that if an enemy reserves unit comes down within 12 inches to try and charge that objective that they're holding, the heavy intercessors can use Auspex Scan and leverage the firepower of their Strength 5 bolt rifles, which are likely to be AP 2 thanks to the Tactical Doctrine, keeping in mind Imperial Fists bolt rifles score 2 hits for each hit roll of 6. And the last unit will be a 5-man squad of Terminators, all taken with Stormbolters and Power Fists. The idea with these guys is to teleport them down ideally onto an objective and do what Terminators do, which is be difficult to shift. At 3 wounds a pop with an armor save of 2+, Terminators can benefit that much more from the defensive strats available, and from their arrival point they'll have 20 bolt gun shots at the 24-inch range, which again will have hit rolls of 6 exploding into 2 hits. A Teleport Homer has been taken since it provides a means of relocating a slow but durable unit. Should you need to move your Terminators to your deployment zone or anywhere else within 3 inches of another unit, you can remove them and provide support on the subsequent turn. And that's the list, coming in at that oh so sweet 2,000 points. It provides a total of 11 command points plus D3 thanks to our Hand of Dorn Librarian. I think having the surplus of command points will provide the Imperial Fists with the opportunity to make choices, and hopefully keep from being too rigid. Beyond that, the list features a bunch of units to leverage their exploding bolt benefits, and has some fun rules interactions in the double tapping Eliminators and the moving Siege Fortress of Dreadnoughts. And if you aren't into named characters, you can swap Tor Garradon for a captain with the mastercrafted heavy bolt rifle, and making him a chapter master, we're back at a nice 2,000 points. In the words of the Imperial Fists Primarch Rogel Dorn, discipline, duty, unyielding will. These are the measures by which every warrior is judged. Well, that's a wrap on this one. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video enjoyable and informative. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to drop them down below, and if you are an Imperial Fist player, I would be curious to know, how are you feeling with the new Space Marines Codex in hand? So if you enjoyed this video, there is a like button, and if you want to help this channel grow, there is a subscribe button. There is also a bell button and a share button, so press the buttons you want to press. Thanks again for watching, and I will hope to